Welcome to Pause for Peace with me, Pastor Jule, and I hope you are having a fabulous start to spring. The Spring Equinox happened on March 20th, 2026, and we are on our way towards this beautiful resurrection of all the earth. It's, at least here in the Northern Hemisphere, it is such a fabulous time. I know a lot of people can have allergies during this season because everything starts to be in bloom. In the Christian household, we are moving closer and closer to Holy Week, the time when we will hear of the stories of Jesus being in Jerusalem, what takes place. He's coming up against some resistance, some clashing, and what takes place for him. The stories in the liturgical calendar that those of us who are connected in that way to Revised Common Lectionary and celebrating the cycle of the church calendar, we are right on this day when this podcast is being released to you, March 22nd, 2026, when we're hearing the story from the Gospel of John, chapter 11, of people who are good friends of Jesus, one of whom actually dies. And the sisters that are named in that text are calling Jesus to come and to be with them, actually to intervene before their brother dies. There's all sorts of detail in the story of John 11. And I do want to point out a couple of things, because when we flip to that part in English Bibles, we will see the names of Lazarus, of Martha, and of Mary. And Elizabeth Schrader, who has this fascinating history of being the singer-songwriter who is awakened in a new way in a garden in New York City and called to follow the Mary Magdalene, to follow the Magdalene. She ends up being enrolled in seminary because, that's what she thought she had to do. And in her own research and work in her seminary years, discovers in this story, as she follows the tracings of Mary the Magdalene, that the gospel manuscripts in the earliest form only named in John 11 Lazarus and Mary Magdalene, Mary. And there was no Martha named. And at some time in about the 3rd century, we can begin to see in the manuscripts at that time and in the copies from the original manuscripts that there's either on purpose or on accident, because that can happen when you're copying word after word after word in ancient Greek or ancient Hebrew. There can be accidents that are made. So either as a just genuine mistake or actually as some kind of way to write in some different people in this story, this name Martha ends up being added. Historically, we have kept alive the story of Lazarus, Mary, and Martha. And even in the Roman Catholic Church, for centuries, there was an understanding that these 3 siblings in Bethany were actually the ones that are known as Lazarus, Martha, and Mary the Magdalene. And in the stories that are told in southern France, these are the 3 siblings that come together to the shores of southern France. However, the discovery that Libby Schrader, now Dr. Libby Schrader, has made about John 11 is that, in fact, there was some tampering at some point in time, again, either by mistake or either by accident, mistake, or maliciously, that there was a change and this Martha was added. And all of it to say is the way the scripture comes to us right now, at least, though probably eventually there's going to be a footnote added in editions that'll be coming forth after this scholarship of Dr. Libby Schrader, because Harvard Review and biblical scholars in Germany have said, in fact, what she discovered in her work as a master's student actually is accurate. However, we have tradition and story, and we have history, and we have it all kind of coming together. And the scriptures that we read are these 2 sisters who are deeply grieving the loss of their brother Lazarus, and that these are some really close friends of Jesus who live in Bethany, which is just outside of Jerusalem. There's a lot of kind of lore around if these are the three siblings that actually came to the shores of southern France for escape or for evangelism, one or the other, to be the ones to bring Christianity and this story about Jesus to the shores of southern France. That there's a lot of lore about if this is the only home and the only place in which these siblings lived, but how it comes to us in the Gospel of John in the 21st century at least, are that Lazarus, Martha, and Mary are siblings, and Lazarus has died. And the sisters had called for Jesus to come to prevent this from happening. Jesus delays, for whatever reasons, Jesus delays. And when he arrives and discovers the weeping and the deep grief that is happening over the death of Lazarus, Jesus himself is moved to tears. And there's this fascinating part of the gospel that has Jesus calling Lazarus back to life. Literally saying, Lazarus, come out. He's calling him out of the tomb in which his body had been encased, with them understanding that he had died. And Jesus calls Lazarus back to life. This is the story that is so close to the season of Easter. And the way the Gospel of John tells this story, this is one of the main tipping points. There's no going back for those who are already questioning and wondering about Jesus. There's no going back after this incident. Jesus is in hot water with them thereafter, and there's some conniving and kind of scandaling that begins to happen as there's this force that works against Jesus. What I'm fascinated about these few days after Spring Equinox is this invitation that Jesus speaks for Lazarus to come out, for Lazarus to come back to life. And in this season of Lent that we have been celebrating, as those in the Christian household have been working through this season of Lent, following deeper and deeper in this path of living love in the world, the call that is before us these couple of days after Spring Equinox in the Northern Hemisphere is the invitation to come back to life. With all of the world that springs forth in this beautiful season, we are called to resurrect. There are those aspects of ourself, those things within us that we go through seasons and cycles of life, and sometimes they wither, sometimes they fade, sometimes they actually experience what might be like a death inwardly of an aspect of ourselves or something about ourselves, or maybe even a relationship we've had in the world. And Jesus is inviting that to come back to life here in this season of spring, as we meditate on and realize this beautiful story captured for us in the Gospel of John. If you don't go too far down the path of reason and logic here, stick with me here for a second and literally listen to that invitation to be drawn back to life out of the tombs, the death that we have experienced internally. This can be such a powerful experience for us, a powerful meditation for us. So our pause for peace today, our meditative practice, is this invitation to listen to this voice calling us back to life. So I'm going to invite you to get yourself quiet wherever you are. Maybe be still for a little bit and get your feet flat on the earth. It's even better if you actually go out into the grass, because for some of us, the grass is beginning to grow here, March 22nd, 2026. some of us living in northern kind of areas, we still see like snow and ice and whatnot, but like for some of us, we're beginning to see the grass. So it's wonderful if we can get our feet into the grass, or at least somewhere where we can be for a little bit. We're going to go inward now, centering inward with our feet flat on the ground, and beginning to breathe deeply from our belly and release slowly. Let's take a couple more deep breaths, deep breathing from the belly, and release slowly. One more deep breath from the belly. The belly is expanding out. Pausing for just a moment before we slowly release, and as we do, settle ourselves, like maybe feel the anchor of awareness coming deeper and deeper into the space of our heart. As we go inward, in these moments of stillness, if we're feeling like pulled off, take another deep breath. Settle ourselves back in to this core of who we are. And our invitation as we sit in this time of stillness today, through the space of our heart, is to literally ask the divine that is within to reveal to us what in us needs to be invited back to life. And then we listen, we notice, we receive, we might even see inwardly what in us needs to be invited back to life. There's no judgment around this. Just listen, just receive whatever God reveals. You can personalize the question, what in me needs to be invited back to life? And for these few moments, we just go off brain, just allow the logic and reason to quiet down for a little bit. You can literally tell it to go take a nap for just a few moments while through the spiritual eye of the heart you listen, you notice, you see, you receive from God a response when you pose this question inwardly. What in me needs to be invited back to life? What in me needs to be invited back to life? We'll take another deep breath now. And as we exhale it, we do so with this intention of gratitude, inwardly expressing our thanks for what has been received. Even if we don't yet understand what has been received, we still can make this promise to God, to the divine within, that we will honor what has been received, that we will truly receive this gift as something that is for the highest good, that God alone knows, even if we are still struggling to understand it. There's been this precious gem that we've been given in this quiet. So we give gratitude to God for that. This beautiful, blessed, indwelling spirit that is in all living things. Perhaps an awareness of this spirit living in you and in all living things is the very thing that needs to be invited to life. When we're ready, I'll invite us to place our hands palms together near the center of our chest. Let's take another deep breath. We release with a gratitude signal to one another, so we can bow simply, honoring that life is in all of us, even if it needs to be coaxed back into this springing forth. This beautiful season of spring can remind us of this force of life that never ultimately dies, that has this ability to return again and again. Whatever you've received today, I hope that you will truly remember it. So to do that, we can what's called concretize that. We talk about in the dream world, we concretized the wisdom that has been received when we work our dreams. We can concretize what we have heard. We can jot it down in a journal or on an app that we might use for keeping track of things. Find some way to keep this before us so that it can be in this invitation of what needs to come back to life in us, that whatever we have heard can be before us every day and as that symbol itself. I would love to hear what you actually received in the time of stillness. So please take a moment and just jot that down in the chat below our link for this show. We would love to hear what you have heard. This would just be an amazing way to create this whole spring resurrection in all of us. These ways and these aspects of ourselves that need to come back to life. It might be trust, it might be joy, it might be hope, it might be forgiveness, it might be peace, it might be patience, it might be a new relationship that needs to be given a new chance. Whatever it would be, it might be a whole new moving forth into something we have never done before, but that is our invitation to allow that to come back to life, to be in our lives. Find a way to remember that. Feel free to share it in the show notes, and I hope that you can keep your eyes open wherever you are in this world today to see those little glimmers of the world coming back to life, and to remember this amazing power that is the Christ, that is this undying spirit that is life, that resurrects again and again and again. Find symbols of that. Keep those before you each and every day, and be on the lookout wherever you go. Welcome, welcome, welcome to the season of spring. And I hope you'll go forth from this podcast today ready to be invited into new life. Blessings, and have a wonderful week.